everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tuber. Welcome back. If this is your second The Rookie Season 8 episode review, hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying safe out there in the big old world. Yeah, it just kind of feels a little bit weird to kind of get back into things, again, it's been a very, I will stop saying it every episode at the start, but, it's just been a very eager transition, going back to more of a weekly cadence with the rookie review specifically after, the last half of the year wasn't entirely the best. But with that being said, however, we are here, we are back on a full weekly thing, and I'm going to be completely honest with y'all. I feel like the return, it feels like a hard switch because, we're also reviewing Madlock this television season with its second season, and it kind of reminds me a little bit the fact that that there will be moments in the rookie where, again, this is just the one downside when it comes to doing we're gonna wait till January to premiere the season, so we have those extra 3 months of backlog episodes, so that when we do kick off the season, we do have a much more consistent flow of content to see and review, that it becomes a little bit aware that the rookie has a little bit of a different style than what I'm used to nowadays when it comes to presenting its episodes. And one being is that we have a very hard slap into kind of the new routine, and as well as just in general that this is going to be developing a little bit different than a traditional story. I believe we're going to still have the larger play, which will probably pay off eventually, but with everything going on with Garza and the FBI and Monica. But this week's episode was mostly setting up the new status quo, and which is ironic considering the fact most season 8s do have that moment where we're acknowledging that the previous era of the show has come and gone. This is completely different, whether or not that was intentional or not. Again, I pride the rookie, even if we weren't at this point, they always find new cadences every season to switch up the formula so that people don't get too comfortable of we're seeing the same show play out every single season until we get to the next reboot point. So then I give them credit like that, but the fact that this episode kind of feels really every single person talks about the changes. Again, this is not season 1, episode 1 anymore. We are in season 8, and that comes with new caveats, new dynamics, new eras for the show to explore and to be able to kind of to experiment with. And I think honestly, as a result, it allows for a much more stronger start. I'm still getting used to some of the new dynamics in terms of just, where could we potentially go with these? And as well as, just letting the characters be themselves. And I think honestly, that is the best thing you can do with your show, that you know what works, what's established, and you're just going to start rolling with it. And, I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop. There is going to be something coming up that I will most likely change that status quo. But right now we're in this new honeymoon stage where everyone's kind of adjusting but still being happy with the changes. And again, they're teeing some things up that could be a little bit more complex than nature, and sometimes it's going to be a much more enjoyable ride as a result of it. So with that being said, let's go for the Butcher recap and talk about this week's episode of The Rookie. So we pick up a little bit of an emotional sentiment. It's Lucy Chen's moving day. She is moving out of the apartment. We have seen her for 7 years, for 7 seasons specifically. Selena is taking over as de facto primary leaseholder. It is a very this is kind of where it begins. We're acknowledging that, and I apologize for not turning off my Pokemon Pocket app. I do apologize for that. It has been a long road for her. Obviously, we talked about her throughout all the seasons, her ups and downs in her journey, and the fact that she has been through a lot. She has been in this apartment with Jackson when he was alive and around, and also taking care of Tamara during a very crucial period in her life. Now, briefly with Selena, she's ready to kind of, take that next step, even if it is scary. You know, again, you're moving in with a boyfriend, with a partner. That it is a very scary approach, considering the fact it is essentially a new lifestyle. The lifestyle you had before isn't going to be the same. She's excited, but at the same time, she's, of course, very nervous. So again, it's a very somber feeling. And I will keep in mind that, like, you know, again, I'm due to rewatch season 5 later this year, so that's still a very far away example from my cadence. But, like, you know, seeing Lucy and Selena being very cozy and being friendly with each other, it could just be generally with their vibes with each other. You know, and again, we haven't gotten to see too much of them, to be honest, considering the fact they only just set this up at the tail end of season 6. So, and I know season 7 was a very lengthy season. There was a lot of off-screen, you know, connection building, but, you know, again, it's still a little bit weird for me to, like, you know, it's only been one season when they have been living together. But again, season's a long time, even if it has been 6 or 7 months, so to speak. Miles moves in officially, minimalist style, you know. Lucy's taking out, I think, close to like 25 to 30 boxes, while Miles is bringing just his duffel bag and his backpack, which is very hilarious, to say the least, about that. But as we kick that off, again, you know, this is still, again, the day of new beginnings. Obviously, Tim has been promoted to the watch commander seat, as Gray is taking up on Garza's offer to be an official LAPD, essentially on his task force with LAPD. Well, so from my understanding, Gray's still going to be at the LAPD, but he's going to be mostly aligning with the feds. Again, how often do we get to see that is unclear. This episode just being, you know, the handing up the rope to Tim, who has been, you know, again, this is Tim's, you know, big promotion. This is his big day as well. You know, him, like, moving up to the Gray level of things. And, you know, obviously that comes with a lot of different, you know, elements, a lot of different balancing of things. Obviously, you know, in a way, technically, him and Lucy are back in a hierarchy chain. But since Tim is calling the shots, he can kind of get away with a little bit of that. But, you know, it is a very sudden change. Again, we've always seen Gray in this office, now seeing Tim there. It's going to take a little bit of time to kind of adjust back into that new stratosphere. And then at the same time, you know, Harper and Lopez, after a very messy day on the job, they're talking about potentially a life after the LAPD, potentially starting their own business, starting their own, like, you know, side business. And while that does intrigue me, you know, again, like, you know, whether that is setting up, you know, and well, future spoilers, yeah, they immediately disregard this idea, but, like, it's a bit of an interesting thing to see, where, like, potentially, you know, them doing their own thing, whether that means spin-off or, like, you know, just in general, like, you know, again, when it comes to long-running TV shows, it becomes a factor at play where, like, actors and actresses might not want to do the same thing day in and day. You know, you do the same job for now going into 8 years, you know, sometimes you're like, well, I could do something else. Like, there could be potential for me to move somewhere else. Where exactly does that lead to? Who really knows? Again, maybe I'm reading too much into an offhand one episode joke, but, like, you never know. Maybe that's just a very subtle planting the seed right there. And Chen being back in the daytime shift, taking over Tim's original slot. So it allows the dream team to be truly together again, you know. And of course, with Tim being watch commander, he no longer has the ability to be a TO anymore. So that means that Nolan will be taking over. Miles is training for the rest of the run. So that means, so we don't necessarily need to get a new rookie this year. Obviously, that leaves the door open for if we get a 9th season. But again, I'm speaking way too much into that factor. But Tim does kick off his new era as watch commander properly, as well as Lucy's new reign as acting sergeant. Well, I forgot what the terminology is for her position now. I forgot, to be honest with you. But yeah, so big days ahead, and the first thing that they're tackling on this new era for Mid-Wilshire is a presidential visit from the president. I don't know why I worded it like that. So they'll be working with the private secret service agents to assure that the president's route and dictating flow in his time in LA is going to be proper and seamless. Lucy taking over the motorcade route, making sure that there's no potential security measure, no potential security risks, making sure that he fine from point A to point B till he's there, to when he leaves. And Lopez and Harper have graciously, forcefully been volunteered to take care of a list of potential subjects that could potentially pose a threat to the president's safety. So it's all hands on deck on this one, as Nolan also allows Miles to kind of begin his new second half of his career, training journey with him. Obviously, Miles getting a little bit of a insight from Selena. How does Nolan compare to Tim? And say, well, they're obviously going to have striking differences, but Nolan is still going to carry himself with gumption, and he's going to also be able to kind of, give Miles a proper training experience, regardless of what the layers might say about him. And Nolan finds it very accommodating for him to start off their new TO boot relationship with allowing Miles to finally pick up his first proper CI and getting some fruitful results out of it. And, they're going for a multitude of people that I don't believe we ever met before on the show, but eventually they settle on someone named Fast Andy. And Nolan has some reservations about him. We'll get to more about him in a second. But, Miles like, hey, look, we got to start somewhere. It is my CI, and, I'll take the blunt of it if it doesn't work out or if it doesn't provide any fruitful connections. But definitely, it is something that Miles needs to learn being on the job. So Nolan allows him to, some leeway to go about it. I believe, where are we going here? Yeah, Lopez and Harper go experimenting through some potential solo business ideas before they hit up one of the people on the hit list's houses, which once they go in, he is very meticulously OCD, so I will give him very much credit and, shout out to that, even though he is a potential criminal. But however, when they do discover his secret gun stash, they do find a few selective yet very dangerous weapons missing from his arsenal, so that does indicate he is on the move. The timing is very suspicious, so definitely they're going to move him to the top of the list and call all hands on deck on this one. Nolan does take Miles to meet Fast Andy, who is, run-the-mill junkie, not entirely fully there. Obviously, Miles is just trying to make the connection work so he can get a CA on the books. He does make some very, not too outrageous yet, a little bit beyond the boundaries of comfortability, promises to him, hey, look, I can't get you out of murder, I can't get you out of assault, but anything else, we can work it out. And I'm like, Miles, you can't promise that. I don't know. I don't know, man. I really don't know with you. I don't know. Sometimes you're like, you're there and you're not. That's all I'm going to say on the matter. So from that point, I believe Lucy's going over the motorcade route, but she's just finding a lot of difficulties trying to navigate through things at the moment. With that, everyone converges on the house. Again, all hands on deck. Even Tim, on his first day as watch commander, has to come in and kind of, resuscitate the ship as they're trying to figure this out. Selena goes with one of the Secret Service agents to speak to I believe to the girlfriend of the ex-girlfriend of the suspect. Lucy's going to keep working on the route itself. Everyone's going to explore leads to try and find the individual, and just make sure that everything is on point with this matter, because again, it's the president, like national security, nothing can go wrong on this one. Nothing can go wrong. So I believe eventually, I'm trying to remember. Oh no, not Selena and the agent. It's Lopez and Harper do take care of the ex-girlfriend of the subject, who is again on the border of he's kind of good, but at the same time he's not. And how they led to their breakup is that he kind of crossed the line with his obsessions. She kind of gave him, she kind of left him for a little bit. By the time she came back, he decided to pack up and leave, which, allows, an opportunity for this to kind of spiral down to a much more difficult rabbit hole. But they do keep her in touch just in case if he decides to kind of turn the gun on her, should that be a possibility at play here. I know Fast Andy does start texting Miles a lot of random memes and a lot of random, things now that they're in contact with each other, which I'm like, bruh. I mean, that is a new thing. That is something that I wouldn't have expected when the show kicked off back in 2018. I will 100% give them, gumption on that one. I believe Bailey is the one that actually does manage to find the subject, which he gets into a car accident, so they do have to bring him to the hospital. So Selena is there to kind of get him and process him, so they can call it a day with this matter. Sadly, however, he does escape. He does manage to return back to his weaponry, hijack a tow truck, while Nolan and Miles were briefly on the pursuit, but they weren't able to fully follow him as they lose sight of him. And sadly, they do have to now start over. Lucy instructs them to return back to the Mid-Wilshire station to assist with Lopez and Harper. Hopefully, they'll manage to get some of the details of what potentially their next move could be, while Lucy continues to work on the motorcade route. Selena does talk with the Secret Service agent, and apparently he is kind of similar to Selena, where like they do tap into the spiritual realm more often, but he does believe he is a reincarnation of Abraham Lincoln, which I am like, that is wonderful. That is great. Yeah, I mean, sure, let's go with that. Let's go with that. And it's like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know if they're teaching something else. Just, fun humor. Who really knows about that? I believe that's everything during that day shift. I don't remember there was anything else majorly out there. I know everyone does converge back on the station. It is end of day. Everyone's heading back home. And Lucy does have to tell Bradford they do have to hold off on their first day of moving in, because Lucy does have to revise the motorcade schedule and make sure that everything that is with that route can be as best as can be. So she's gonna work a red eye, make sure that is proper, which Tim does accept. He does allow that to go through, and he'll return home and just prepare for her arrival the next day with that front. So everyone heads home. Miles and Selena bossing about Nolan and just everything going on, as well as the Fast Andy motion of all of it, while Nolan does work out with Bailey potentially owning some chickens, which I'm like, interesting development. But again, LA is a very warm to hot climate, so it is a very neutral environment to potentially raise some chickens, so I don't blame him on that. Lucy is not doing so well developing this motorcade route, as she keeps getting criticized by Secret Service agents. So the red egg goes longer than it may be, and Bradford drops by to drop off some food for her, to allow her to kind of have this sense of like, okay, I have some backup here. I do have some wonderful backup with this one, allowing them to continue to flourish their new second relationship properly. Sadly, however, all their happiness goes awry when Fast Andy is seen holding up a dispensary, claiming that he has immunity from Officer Penn, and Miles is like definitely screwed as Nolan learns about this. So I'm like, that is wonderful. That is great. Nolan, you are definitely screwed in the pooch on this one. As when they head over the next day to work, obviously Bradford chews both of them out that this was first day on the job, first day for everyone, and it just went completely wrong at the end of it. He berates Penn for choosing Fast Andy as a CI, and he also berates Nolan for allowing Miles to choose him as a CI. So obviously he will berate them and punish them later on once the presidential visit is over, which is still very much in a risky state of mind right now, but they have to work with what they can get right now, so he'll hold off on their punishment until later on. I believe by that time, sadly, Gray does have to re-step in as acting watch commander, because it's a presidential visit. It's still Bradford's second day on the job. They do not want to risk anything to a newbies, so they want Gray to come back in and just act as commander for the day, just make sure everything's fine, which again, Bradford understands the point of view, but it's still very much of an insulting blow, considering the fact that on his first day, he allowed a new rookie to have a very messy CI selection. So I believe from there, so everyone converges back in the room. They're still looking for the subject. They're still having to have a very more intense, very more dictating route as planned, but however, that is just the nature of the business. That is just the nature of the day, so they'll just have to go through it as best as possible. The Secret Service agents were briefly about to let Bradford take over the motorcade route, but Bradford does allow Chen to still remain on point despite all the demotions happening temporary for the day. So they do play with that motion right there. So everyone heads out to kickstart their day as the president's arrival draws near. I do believe as Lopez and Harper finally gets access to the original handwritten notes to the president, they do find out his original first stop is going to be actually killing his own ex-girlfriend, which I don't really understand what the relationship to that is, or he's just super salty. Is completely unclear. It's completely unclear. But regardless, yeah, he's going after her too. So everyone heads off over to her, at least not to warn the president's safety, but definitely still as civilians' safety as well. To it, he attacks the warehouse she works at. She thankfully manages to step away from him with a good amount of distance, allowing him and her to have a considerable amount of wayward distance between them before Nolan, Miles, Lopez, and Harper show up. To get in there, they manage to loop around in a much more, a split-off fashion, but they do manage to loop around, get the dude, and keep everyone safe as a result. No casualties, no harmfulness. Actions occur, so thankfully that is still a big win for them on the result. And that's when Lopez and Harper decide, yeah, you know what? The job is still rewarding at time. We ain't leaving. We ain't spinning off to our own thing, which I'm like, thank God. Thank God on that. I don't think we can deal with that right now. Yeah, so thankfully the visit is over. The Secret Service is being pulled out now that the president's route has been secured. Now they no longer need a secondary presence at Mid-Wilshire. The fight is contained. That specific Secret Service agent says farewell to Selena, and Selena makes it a little bit awkward, saying, like, you know what, maybe we vibe so much, maybe in another life I was Mary Lincoln. And I'm just like, bruh. I don't blame the agent whatsoever. I really don't. Nolan does talk to Miles about everything that happened, and while he will still put him 100% at play for selecting Fast Andy as a potential CI, he's also not going to, change his style, change his TO style for Miles. It's not fair for Miles to just get, selective treatment when, he needs to get a full round experience. So Nolan will still be training him the same way that he has for Selena. So that will not change. He will not change his style to be more of a Bradford style or anything. That is the nature at play here, hopefully, for Miles to get a little bit more of a different experience for the second half of his training period. He also speaks to Bradford about, he's not going to conform to Bradford's methodology, and even though Bradford does have more years on the job than Nolan does, he is still going to find his own way to figure out how to run his rookie. Even if Tim started the process, and Tim agrees, yes, no, you should go for it, but at the same time, you still made a very bad mistake letting him pick Fast Andy as a CI, so you will be reprimanded for that, so, which Nolan agrees to that. Gray does inspire even more parting wisdom to Tim, letting him know, hey, every day's hard, everything's going to be harder than the last. Don't expect yourself to, get everything on the job at the first go-around, just know that you do have the experience to get the job done. It will just take you some time to get through it, which Bradford does appreciate the warm welcome on it. Lopez does inform Wesley that the spinoff is not happening. They're not going to be doing their own solo business, but they will be having some TLC time tonight at a hotel, playing role-playing, which I'm like, interesting, but okay. Sure, let's do that. Let's run for that. And I believe, yeah, so Lucy brings Bradford away to start off their new life together, living together in his house, which is now their house. Which I completely forgot about Kojo, which I'm like, oh, that's wonderful that Lucy finally gets to be around Kojo properly. Again, for after, I think season 2 was the last time we got to see him, them living together, which was a long time ago. That was a long time ago. But no, it's I know a lot of Jennifer fans were like, finally, domestication of this relationship is finally occurring, which I'm like, that's wonderful. And Lucy does give an eyesight of yeah, this is her new life. This could be her new future. And it's very lovely, to say the least, as we wrap up this episode of The Rookie. I think this was a really great episode. I think they wonderfully started off this new status quo properly. Tim being the new watch commander, Lucy being new acting sergeant, Nolan having a proper new rookie again after the whole, fiasco. Actually, I do remember Nolan was still finishing off Selena when season 7 started. I forgot about that. But yeah, no, so Gray being now officially off-site, it's a new era for the rookie, and, it doesn't feel that much different, but it does feel different. And it is a very difficult line to kind of figure out where exactly, where do you want to kind of quasi reset your show at the same time? How do you keep the same feeling going? Because it's very difficult. You look at Grey's Anatomy, 22 years, obviously season 1 is very different from season 22, but it still kind of carries a similar yet different feeling for the show itself. But with all that being said, yeah, I commend The Rookie for allowing them to do this. I'm looking very much forward to what this new era is about to set point. And, I'm perfectly fine with them setting aside the potential larger story at hand to kind of just reset our expectations with what the show could be in the future. And obviously, a lot of Rookie fans are happy with certain decisions they made. And, obviously, when you get to longer and longer time periods with your show, you're obviously going to get to some criticisms. But you know what? I think that is still at a very minimalist play here. With that, and I very much look forward to what the rest of Season 8 has left in store with this new status quo. But with all that being said, I'm giving this episode 2 thumbs up. Let me know down below what you think of this week's episode of The Rookie. Did you love it? Did you like it? Let me know down below. I would love to have a conversation with you about it. But I believe that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So if you're unaware, this has been WOTT 2 from ActionX reviewing the second episode of The Rookie. If you want to know what we're doing normally on WOTT 2, besides our Rookie episode reviews, right now we're not doing anything prevalent right now. We are just doing Rookie. We also have After the Theater. We are about to kickstart a second season. Hopefully soon. We're still in editing. It still takes a while. Be patient on us with that. But if you don't care about The Rookie, you're in luck. We'll be back next week with another brand new episode review, so stay tuned until then. But again, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, like, favorite, share if you want to. Ring that bell and follow us on social media for updates for more videos. But until we see each other again, thank you so much for watching. Please stay safe out there. Be good to each other. And as always, peace out.